So, you think your country is ready for the digital age? Eh? Think again. This episode will show you top scores in the digital transition, the one we've been hearing about for so long, and what the AWTY Index reveals may change your assumptions, your convictions. Well, I also sat down with Jean-Michel Viola in this episode. He's a dean, he's an entrepreneur, a dean of a business school, and he's an EU expert. And we talked about big gaps in reskilling and why many startups are set up to fail. We also talked about HE Innovate and how it can be fixed from the inside. An interesting project he's working on. My favorite quote in this interview from Jean-Michel is when he said, "Plenty of startups jump in and hit a wall." You have to watch it for yourself. It's quite interesting. And finally, I'll break down a new 10 million euro open call from the ESF Plus. This could fund your next idea in inclusive employment. And Europe is very much about inclusiveness. This call opens about a real social impact, and you might be eligible. Let me also tell you, in this hot summer day, we're having a new heat wave here in Southern Europe, in Portugal. Let me tell you about this book I just published with my friend Vitor Lima. It's called Pixelverse. It's an exploration of digital and visual infinity. It's now available on Amazon. It's not your typical tech book. It's a very deep analysis into a world where digital art, combinatorial mathematics, and contemporary philosophy collide. They don't mix, they actually collide, I think. So we explore the Pixelverse, which it's, let me say, like there's a digital universe where every pixel arrangement is a unique visual possibility, a space where images and text interact to create new forms of meaning in a limited, large but limited number of possible combinations. So whether you are an artist, a philosopher, a computer scientist, or just curious about the infinite possibilities of digital creativity, this book is for you. We also actually end up reflecting a lot on ethical and social implications of image making in this digital age, with thinkers like Margaret Boden, Henry Bergson, and Hans-Georg Gadamer guiding the way. So check it out in Amazon. My hope is you'll get so curious about this concept, you'll end up buying the book just out of curiosity. Okay, hope you enjoyed the episode. Hi, Fernando here. So today I want to ask you something very simple. Are we there yet? I mean, the digital transition, are we there yet? Is it complete or is it almost complete? How long will it take? Is it going well? Is it going equally fast everywhere? Well, those are the questions behind this week's Polysdoxter report. And the answers might actually surprise you. To get answers for those questions, I just published the AWTY Digital Transition Index. So I built this index covering more than 180 countries, using over 33,000 individual data points, built upon these 5 essential dimensions: internet access, infrastructure quality, e-government, digital economy, and finally ICT skills. Here's the thing. Digital transition isn't just about broadband and smartphones. It's actually about who gets left behind. And that's where research and innovation can make an impact. So I've identified some critical blind spots in digital skills, education systems, regional infrastructure, and I've tracked down how digital sovereignty, data localization, and geopolitical shocks are nowadays, in this day and age, reshaping the future of everyone and the future of innovation and cooperation, of course. So what does that mean for you? Where you locate your pilots matters. Where your partners are matters. Your digital assumptions about governance, infrastructure, users, they may be outdated. So this isn't about being digital. It's about being digitally resilient, inclusive, and strategically aligned. Okay, that's what will be in the a glimpse of what will be in the full report. It's published this Friday, August 1st, in the Polis Docs, the Transitions letter, my newsletter. So if you care about transitions, research, or the future of digital Europe, you'll want to read this and check the data. There's nothing like this that I know of, built with so much data and so much, how can I say this without being presumptuous, such a solid infrastructure. Sorry, subscribe now and get it straight to your inbox. Also, please share, like, everything. And let's stop asking, are we there yet? And start building a digital future that will get us there together. So see you Friday. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome back to InnovEU, the EU Project Chronicles. Welcome, Jean-Michel, Viola, and thank you for being here. Jean-Michel is presently the Dean of school, the Bezos Business School, so a business school in France, and he has quite an experience in different kinds of projects, both in EU and outside of Europe. Let me tell me something about your background, because I can see you are both French and Canadian. So
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So, to be to start by the beginning, I'm from the French Alps. So I was born in a ski resort in the French Alps, and so I moved to Paris. I start studies in economics at the University of Paris too. Then I worked 3 years for JP Morgan in Paris
mhm,
at the beginning of the future market. So it was a pretty exciting period. And then I moved to Canada, where I did my MBA and PhD and postdoc. And I work for 7 years as a professor at HEC Montreal. So that's where I get my Canadian citizenship.
mhm,
And after that, I moved back to Europe. First at CU Business School, the business school of Soros, that was at that time in Budapest. And then I came back to France in Rennes, where I was the associate dean for Rennes School of Business. It's a triple accredited business school in French Brittany. And in the meantime, I have created a couple of small venture in Romania, where I've lived, in Canada, of course, and in Bulgaria, with the country of my wife. So back in France, it's here that I start to interact with European projects, in fact. Some years ago, when I was named Associate Dean at Rennes School of Business, part of my job was to launch an incubator. And
mhm.
at that time, there was also a new strategic plan that was stating a new mission for the school. It was to educate global responsible pioneer. And so it was at that time that HEI Innovate was funded. And so I start to use their framework very early in that process, mostly to bring people around the project, both within the school and outside the school, in the ecosystem of Rennes, which was already a fertile ecosystem, because Brittany in France, especially Rennes, is the area of two very strong fields in France. First, agribusiness. Brittany
Okay.
is the largest agribusiness area in Europe, with bringing more and more technology also in that area. And the second one is telecom and information technology. For example, the French Minitel was founded in Brittany. And Orange R&D is largely done in Brittany, also in Rennes. The French army has chosen Rennes as the headquarters for cybersecurity. So there is in a large ecosystem that is a pool of engineer school, specialized school, and large groups that boost this ecosystem. That was my first interaction with the EU project, and also at the same time, I was also involved in higher education, in continuous education and executive education. So I bring the school to be part of the Pact for Skills, from another project from the EU that is very interesting because it fit very well with continuous education, especially to reskill people in area that is where you have low skills and low competence, like the agri-food industry. And we
Mhm.
had also a project for former army officers that want to go back to the civil life, and so to bring them in in a new mindset and the new skills it was a project that was also co-funded by the Brittany region for them to launch, either to launch their project or to buy existing companies with some
Mhm.
funding. So it was Pact for Skills and HEI Innovate was my two pillars in that project. To go back in the past,
Mhm.
and a few months ago, um, there was a call for experts of HEI Innovate. So I hesitate a little bit. I say I go shoot, I shoot my application, and I was lucky enough to be chosen. So now I'm involved with HEI Innovate as an expert. And it's interesting, both in terms of networking, but also in terms of bringing new ideas to the new round of effort for this organization. So that's basically where we stand. And at the same time, as you mentioned, I've created my own business school last year, Mesos Business School. So it's a kind of HE entrepreneurship that also I try to use these two pillars of Pact for Skills and HE Innovate to create legitimacy in some way, because when you mention the EU, it's always a good signature, despite all we can say. And
Mhm.
also at the same time, it really help to create some new programs and new venture. So it's my presence is this basically these two pillars, and my involvement in the expert group of HCI Innovate that is working even during summer, because
Mhm.
the plan to boost it a little bit. I think it's not enough well known in higher education that there is these tools available. So there is a lot to be done.
Well, before we get into that, into HI Innovate and your business school and all the projects you've been working on, I have to take advantage of your extensive experience in many countries and more than one continent, and ask you, what are the main differences you find between starting a business in Canada, in Hungary, Romania, France? Do you see strong differences?
But I would say, well, at the beginning, not very much, because when you start, you are alone. So you are alone with a white page, and you start to imagine what you can do. And after, but of course, there is some area like in France, in Canada, it's probably easier to find institutional support, all kind of either government or not government facilities that will help you, not necessarily financially, but at least where you find a place to stay or things like that. In Hungary and in Romania, it's more difficult to get institutional support, but at the same time, it's you can move faster in terms of, especially in Romania, you can move faster in terms of bureaucracy. Uh,
Okay.
you can connect also, and it's a huge advantage I've seen, especially in Romania. You can leverage easier the diaspora, the Romanian diaspora abroad. So we are able to have contact of this kind. For France, more difficult, for example, Canada, but not that much going abroad. With the Bulgarian also, it's easier. For example, there is a strong Bulgarian community in France where I
Hmm.
was able to interact through my wife, and it's easier from this side. So I would say that the people skills and the people asset are probably easier to mobilize in Eastern Europe, and institutional support is easier in Canada and France.
Okay,
Mm.
that's a good source of ideas. I guess it will depend a little bit on the kind of business you're starting. If your business is very much dependent on permits and other bureaucracies, you're saying what you're saying is Romania.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
your business is more dependent on having institutional support, like incubators or things like that, you're saying is France or Canada.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
It's probably something like this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So tell us a little bit about HE Innovate, because you're right. It's not that well known in the academia in Europe, and I find the objectives very ambitious, but the results a little bit disappointing. You've
Yeah.
known it from the start, almost the start, so I think you're the right person to
But
ask this question.
yes, for me, I don't remember how I get to know about them, but what is sure is that it's pretty confidential. It's, for example, if I look in France, I never heard any kind of publication or even national support about, let's say, okay, you can use that. There is many association around management, on business schools or higher education, but I never see them mentioning that there is this tool available, and it's able to boost what you want. So maybe everything's coming from the EU to some point is seen as too bureaucratic. And that's true that if you go to their website, it's not very engaging either. We have
No.
seen, it was one of the talk that we had at the first expert group in Brussels in May. It was to say that probably 7 pillars, it's too much. It's probably too redundant, and it's people it seems that they just go for kind of make their diagnostic, and then that's it. It's nothing more than that. And so it's almost like you go on to a magazine, you make a quiz. How good are you at being an entrepreneur? You get your score, and then you have a result. So I think that's one of the two things that was discussed in this group was. Probably to pimp it a little bit, like to make it more straight to the point, and then also to have a kind of user manual of it. So what you do once you've done the diagnosis, what are the next steps that's why there was some groups that were created to address these issues, to try to make it more appealing to the user, and also to publicize it a little bit more, because it's true that it's really too confidential.
Well, I want to challenge you to, let's say, go a little back to the start, to the basis of it. I mean, the main idea of this instrument of HE Innovate is to help universities get more entrepreneurial. So
Yeah.
my question, my challenge is, why? Why shouldn't universities be entrepreneurial? Is that a good thing?
But
In what sense?
there was this tool and even HI Innovate creation was, I think, around this, the idea that there was this hypothesis that innovation is good per se, as you said, and then that also there was a risk of having higher education being too bureaucratic, too apathic. And compared to some, especially the American business schools, the emerging Asian universities. There was this discussion. But I think the really critical point is not to be more innovative, is to accompany the market labor market evolution and to produce skills and knowledge that are useful for the economy, or at least to advance knowledge in society, but with some purpose. And there was a growing gap, I think, in this field where European universities were not that bad in fundamental science and fundamental knowledge, as you can see that even with the number of Nobel Prize, even they didn't get it in the European Union, but at least they were trained and educated in the European Union. But a growing gap between fundamental knowledge and applied knowledge. Of course, in Germany, they are very good in technical education, but in terms of the fitting with the market needs, anticipating market needs, I think it was seen that the European University had to move towards being innovative. Maybe innovative is not the good terminology, and maybe I would say they should be more anticipating of the economy needs and society needs, because innovation, it's a little bit of a buzzword to some point. I can speak about innovation everywhere, but it's the point is for what purpose? It's
Mhm.
the same for growth. What do you want to grow? But to grow for what purpose? Do you need a minimal size to do what you want to do, or it's just for the sake of growth to feed your ego? It's sometimes it's like this. We've seen a business school, for example, in France, becoming so big that they almost look like university, even though at the beginning they were supposed to be more flexible and agile, and
Mhm.
they grow too big. So
So,
it's a real issue about what you mentioned, the purpose of innovation and the purpose of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is the same thing. We have many entrepreneurs, many startups, but survival rate that is very low. Is it really a sane process to go in that way, to have a society of entrepreneurs? Because many people jump in and kill themselves in the process.
yeah. I have a friend who doesn't like the use of the word accelerator in the entrepreneurship field, because he says, I don't want people to accelerate if they're going in the wrong direction, but that's
Yeah.
a different
Yes,
talk.
this it's another another story, but
Yeah, it's
it's
another
also a
story.
show that this idea of startup and entrepreneurship, there is also a kind of a political ideology behind it, because in Canada and in France, it's a little bit the same process. It's very easy to create a startup, very easy to get financing, to get a place to stay, but at some point, the next step is not that easy. And so you have a cone that is very narrow, with a lot of people that are invited, but not many of them that go to the next step, to the next stage. And in that situation, acceleration is maybe not necessarily the issue. It's more like to refine the model than to jump in the wall faster than before. Yeah.
Yeah, we hear European Commission talking a lot about reskilling the European workforce. How does this fit with the goals of HE Innovate? Somehow, is this going to help?
It should, but I don't see it as a priority for the moment. Uh,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I think what's a good point of HI Innovate is to see innovation and entrepreneurship not just as teaching entrepreneurship of teaching innovation, but also involving the whole organization. And it includes for sure lifelong learning. And reskilling is a critical issue, especially with the new wave of technology and in industry that are distressed and need some reskilling, that need to go through green transition. I always keep the example of agri-food. That is a good example because it's in the middle of the few crises in terms of geopolitical crises, in terms of and more intensive technology, and at the same time in the spotlight for green transition. They need for sure reskilling. And I think there is much more to be done in that field. There
Mhm.
was, not only in Europe, there was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, a McKinsey study on the Chinese market where they're saying exactly the same. The Chinese were very good for initial education, and even though now they have a growing unemployment rate for their graduates, even from top university. But there is a huge work to be done for reskilling of people and for lifelong learning. And
Mhm.
this is a huge challenge because at the same time, you have an unemployment rate, you have a growing fight between generation of people retiring soon, not soon, and younger generation that have different aspiration and different relation to the job. So continuous education and learning, it's probably something that is shared by new and old generation. When you ask new generation what they want on a job, they all say they want to continuous learn.
Yeah.
And the older generation that they want to stay in the job market, they need to adapt also. No, some of them at least. So I think our society is not very well prepared for this task. There was always a fight between who should do the job. Is this the job of companies or is this the job of the state? Or so it's probably the job of both, plus the individual himself also. In France, they put in place a kind of uh, money account that every worker, in fact, is feeding this money account that can be used for training.
Mhm.
Uh, the problem is that it opened the door to all kind of scam, you know. So it has also to be regulated. But I mean, it was a good element to learn new language or new skills. For the young generation, it's largely used, for example, to get driving license. They are very
Mhm.
expensive, so they can use this to get driving license.
Okay.
So there are initiatives that are to done, but I think it's not systematic enough, and it's still, I think, a huge work on the table in the EU and also elsewhere.
Well, let me go back to your business school. So you started it not long ago. How do
Last year,
you use these tools in your business school?
but it's in fact I use the HEI Innovate to more like as a benchmark, you know, because it's something also about the HEI Innovate that you can't really compare yourself to others. They give you a kind of evaluation, uh, some kind of benchmark, but everything is anonymous and everything also is self-appreciation, self-evaluation. So it's you don't have to take this for granted. But the framework is useful because it helps you cover every field. It to be sure that you can address the question that was necessarily not in your mind from the start. So yeah, I think it's important for that, for the
Mhm.
Innovate. So we did the diagnostic on ourselves, not too much for the rating, but to be sure to cover everything and to address every issue. And we connect also to the Pact for Skills for the to enter some consortium on reskilling, especially in agri-food.
Mhm. Do you want to share with us some of your experiences with the international projects, EU funded or other? Because how my point is how important is the international partnership in the success of these projects? My initial question is always, could this be done without multiple
In the
international
EU,
partners?
you don't have the choice somehow because somehow they force you to do that,
Yeah.
and especially internationalization, but also the triple helix model that forced to mix institutional large companies and smaller one, which is good, but it's probably not good for all the projects, but anyway, it's another story. So, to go back to the business school, in fact, one of the innovation we made is the idea was to be born global. So to start from scratch with to be in France, in Bordeaux, but at the same time to be in India, in Corpagon, south of Mumbai, to be in Manila in the Philippines, to be in
Hmm.
Togo in Africa. And we are discussing also Algeria with the government. Here the idea is not to be born global, but also to have a pedagogical platform that brings together these different area of the world in terms of the pedagogy, but also in terms of intercultural skills and in terms also of global stakes. When I mention green transition, a geopolitical issue, technological things, plus intergeneration and societal change, it's something that is amazingly shared globally with different flavor, but it's really something that is shared. So we put this idea of transformational leadership at the center, and we try to build around that clearly. So in terms of international project, like clearly it's not making your life easier, but it creates really nice opportunities, and it's almost a built-in innovation model because your innovation will just flow from ideas hurting themselves in this process. Uh, and the new generation, in fact, if you look at the students level, at the bachelor level, you see that they very easily work together. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
we
that's true.
at school we have the issue of the time lag, but they share technological skills that you can have if you are in the middle of Africa, in the Philippines, in India, or in France. They share this digital agility, and they share a kind of global view because of course the students we have they already they want to have an international degree, so they have a
Yeah.
prerequisite as I
Yeah,
said,
somehow.
but they have a global view and a global issue of about mobility, learning from others. So it's great things, and they also face differently but intergeneration struggles. If you are in India, you have clearly this gap. In Europe, it's a growing concern. We've seen this also in the US. So it's an interesting era that we are living in, where a new generation, maybe that never in the past, they share a kind of global view of this four. You can call it crisis or intersection or whatever, but these four trends, we say, so they share a kind of a growingly common view of this situation.
Hmm.
So the international project in that situation is very rich, and it's very interesting. The European project, I would say, are more technical and hugely framed by the bureaucracy of Brussels in terms of what you have to do. I think it excludes a lot of actors due to the heavy procedure and the heavy mechanism. My wife
Hmm.
was working for a few years on European projects from Rennes, bringing together EIT, for example, or French large groups on the small startups. But the startups, most of them, they end up stressed, dried, and a little bit irritated by the process. The large company, but they are used to it, and they were fed by it, so they have teams that are dedicated to this. But I think that in this triple helix model, they didn't think enough about the place and the driver place of small startup, and they are always used a little bit as well, we need a couple of them to fit the
Yeah.
requirements, but they are very rarely at the center of the project. And we've seen this also in higher education, where you have now alliances that are huge projects and growing quality insurance measures that are, in one way, quality measures, but in other way also a way to secure the market and to close the market. And
And
so
to close it, yes.
it's something that we fight at Mesos, especially mostly at the French level, because there was also some abuse in the past from private higher education institutions, not only in France but also abroad. But still, there is claiming quality and not claiming industry protection. Barriers to entry, hidden barriers to entry, and well, it's something that may evolve, and where we hope so. But
Well, maybe that will have some change in the next framework starting 2028 because we are approaching the end of the
yeah,
present framework. So maybe it's time we start voicing these concerns about the current situation so that there will be some changes in the new framework. I don't know. Maybe.
well, we hope so, because the output is not amazing in terms of return on investment,
Yes,
we say.
exactly.
That's true also that we are facing huge competitors. And there is also internal fights within the EU that are not helping. It's great. We see it on the energy market, we see it on the defense market, we see it on the agro-food market. There are internal battles, and it's normal because we have different past, and we have kind of a dual governance plus a political battle at the national level that are using usually EU as a
Exactly.
for shadow boxing. So it's not helping this, but that's true that the common view may be hard to see. We will see that this in education for the European diploma. That
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
project. There is also a strong opposition everywhere. So we'll see what's going to happen with it. But we hopefully it will bring us somewhere. But I think the basic education in Europe is going pretty well. I think it's pretty effective, but it needs to do better in terms of continuous education and connection with the job market. So.
Yeah, that always needs to be improved. But I also agree with you about the importance of a European diploma, of a degree that will be recognized anywhere. That will be very important for the next generation entering the job market. But tell me about the future. Your ideas for the future revolve about the business school, I guess. What kind of projects will you try to do in the near future?
But in the near future, I think first I'd like to contribute to the evolution of Asia Innovate towards a more efficient tool and a more generally used tool. And I think we go in the good direction in terms of what is initiated in the past weeks. So this is one thing. Uh, I really also try to boost project at the European level in terms of continuous education, especially in the agro-food facing a green transition. There is a huge need, and it's not only at generally speaking about agro-food, but I mean almost at the farm level.
Mhm.
If you look, I think in France, you have one farmer committing suicide every week, and they are really in a very tough situation. And usually it's because of the market itself, but it's also because they lack some skills to manage, I would say, the farm in a different way, some management skills. So this is one, I think, important project. The European diploma that will involve, in fact, the students having a European journey in terms of being at least in 3 countries. So this, I think, is a very good thing to match mobility. I think there is already a very good mobility through Erasmus. It's very efficient, this. And maybe the next step would be also to we speak a lot about the European Union, but there are a few lines of work to involve other parts of the world, especially projects between the EU and Africa, between the EU and Southeast Asia. I think here there is a very high demand from this country. There is much to be done on that matter, and not necessarily in terms of mobility, but in terms of developing infrastructure locally. It was a little bit the idea also of a global campus for Mesos. It was to allow students to start higher education at home for multiple reasons. First, in question of cost, and on also a question of visa obtention. So it's something that could be done to develop some infrastructure in education, in agro-food, in health, in some area. And it's on the table at the EU. They already have developed some projects. But here again, sometimes it's a little bit in the clandestinity, You speak about people in Togo, in Ghana, they have never heard about it. So there is some bridge that need to be built so these people, we need them to have access to the resources that are available, but sometimes not even used in terms of Africa, Southeast Asia. We are involved, for example, in Iraq. So the EU is very present in Iraq, France also. But this type of project in education, they could be really efficient because higher education, if I take the example of Iraq, they have maybe a couple of universities that is doing the job, but overall, it's really in a critical state. Although the country is now going better, is safer, they have a lot of resources, but they need skills and they need support to develop higher education.
So that's in your plans for the future.
Yeah.
I see you don't plan to rest, you plan to work a lot.
Yes, but I don't plan to do it alone.
Okay. So speaking of which, if you will allow me, we'll put your contact details in the podcast notes so that people who
Okay.
want to collaborate with you so that you don't do everything alone.
It would be nice.
We'll be able to reach you.
Be nice, no problem. Yeah. No problem.
Okay, so any final message to end the interview?
But I think that we are in an amazing era. I think people call it a crisis, but it's also open bar for opportunities. I think there have never been so many resources to be mobilized to do plenty of things. Just need maybe to pick what is exciting you because it's important, and in the new generation, it's the message they send to do things that is exciting them. So they need to get pleasure in the job and not to do a job where they won't be just for to feed them. Just enjoy what you are doing, and there are plenty of opportunities.
Thank you very much for this interview, and I really like that final message. There's plenty of things to be done, and interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I agree with you. So thank you very much, and
thanks to you, and we stay in touch. Maybe we call you to intervene at Bezos to share your immense knowledge on the new projects.
Very good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Goodbye.
This call isn't just about ticking inclusion boxes. It's about transforming how we include everyone in the economy and getting EU support to do it. If your project touches social innovation, disability, employment, or systemic inclusion, this is your moment. Let's break it down so you can win this opportunity and avoid the mistakes that sink most applications. This is a high-impact call under the ESF plus Social Innovation Plus initiative, focused on implementing the Disability Employment Package. The EU wants to fund innovative, scalable social solutions that improve employment outcomes for persons with disabilities. We're talking about transnational projects that adapt or scale practices already recommended by the EU. Target areas include inclusive hiring, career guidance and integration services, reasonable accommodation at work, retention and return to work strategies, transitions from sheltered to open labor markets. If you've tested a local solution or want to transfer a great one from abroad, this is your chance. Total call budget, 10 million euros. Grant per project, 500,000 euros to 1 million euros. Co-financing required, 20% minimum from non-EU sources. Form of grant, lump sum, project duration, 18-24 months. So you'll need a lean, impact-oriented plan, because lump sum means deliverables or no payment. Application deadline, October 30th, 2025 at 17 o'clock CEST. Submission platform, Asinis portal. Start of projects, expected mid-2026. Don't wait. Use a submission timeline planner now. Applicants must be legal entities based in EU or ESF plus associated countries. Types of organizations, public bodies, NGOs, social enterprises, VT providers, universities, employers associations, chambers, trade unions, companies including private businesses. Consortium rules. Minimum 3 entities from 2+ countries. Must include at least 1 public authority. If you need help building a consortium, check our Consortium Builder GPT or join the Consortium Mastermind. This is not a pilot call, it's a scaling call. The EU wants you to adapt or scale a proven practice from the Disability Employment Package, produce reusable outputs like manuals, procedures, or guidelines. Prove your impact with outcome indicators tied to real improvements for persons with disabilities. Involve the community. User-centered design and diverse stakeholders are essential. Collaborate in mutual learning events with the European Competence Center for Social Innovation. If your project doesn't scale or prove learning, it won't be funded. Common mistakes to avoid: applying without transnational partners, ignoring the package. Your project must be grounded in the EU's existing work. Forgetting the impact plan. No evaluation equals no funding. Overloading the budget with ineligible costs. For full guidance and templates, visit socialinnovationplus.eu and the European Social Fund Plus website. Always submit through the Asinis portal. This call is a smart move for projects that want to make a lasting impact, show measurable results, and prove what works in employment and inclusion. Start with a clear idea. Use the EU Project Readiness Pyramid. Build the right consortium. And focus on outcomes that go beyond your own project. Want tools to boost your chances? Check the show notes for free templates and our proposal readiness mini assessment. Let's get your innovation funded.
InnovEU, the EU Project Chronicles, is a weekly video podcast. Please subscribe to the Polyxox newsletter to receive every podcast episode. And if you like receiving it, please press like in whatever platform you are watching or listening. Also, please share InnovEU and Polyxox with anyone you feel will enjoy it. Credits: author and host Fernando C. Gaspar, music Hugo Gaspar, Lisbon, Portugal, 2024. Reach us by email or DM.